My name is Sydney. I am 11 years old, and last summer, my mom went to Europe for a month and left me with a single crumpled 20 in my hand. "See, you are independent now," she said with a bright smile, hauling her suitcase toward the door. "You are not a baby anymore. Just order food if you need to." Okay, independent. That was her word, not mine. I stared at the bill in my palm. $20. Not a plan, not a babysitter, not even a real goodbye. Just a fake kiss on my forehead, the sound of a suitcase rolling down the driveway, and the front door closing in my face. "I will be fine," I said out loud to an empty hallway, as if saying it could make it true. But my hands were shaking. There was no one else in the house, no one who could cook, no one who even knew I had been left here alone. I tried to pretend this was some kind of challenge I could win. Day one, I told myself, I will prove that I can handle this. I lined up the few cans in the pantry, checked the fridge that was already half empty, and shoved my fear down as far as it would go. If my mom thought I was independent, then maybe she should see what that really looked like. Because as that month ticked forward, the $20 in my hand would disappear, the food would run out, and the silence in our house would turn into something darker than loneliness. And when they finally came back, what my mom saw inside our home made her whisper, "No, no, this cannot be happening." Do you want to know how being left with $20 at 11 turned into the one decision that made my mom regret everything she had done to me? Stay to the end, and you will see exactly how I made sure she would never forget it. The first problem hit me about 10 minutes after the taxi pulled away. My mom had tossed a shiny emergency credit card on the counter, like that would fix everything. There was just one catch. It was not activated, and I did not know the PIN. I found that out the hard way, standing at the doorway with my phone in my hand, trying to order food, and watching every app reject the card over and over. So it was just me, a dead card, and $20. Day one, I made it a game. I sliced bread as thin as I could, spread peanut butter so carefully it barely covered the surface, and told myself real survivors made things stretch. I even joked in my head that this would make a good story someday. By day 3, it stopped being funny. The pantry looked like a before picture in a commercial about hunger. A couple of cans I did not know how to open without cutting myself, a box of cereal with more air than food, and a jar of pickles I hated. My stomach growled loud enough to embarrass me, even though no one else was there. I tried to distract myself. I turned the TV on and let random shows play, noise filling the room so I did not have to hear the house creak. I opened my mom's laptop and stared at her work emails, stacked up like they were more important than anything. At one point, I grabbed my notebook and wrote in big letters at the top of a page, "Evidence." Under it, I scribbled, "Left alone at 11, $20, no food plan, no check-ins." I did not know exactly what I would do with that, but writing it down made something inside me shift. If they thought I was old enough to be alone, then I was old enough to remember everything, to record everything, to show someone someday how they chose a vacation over me. I picked up my phone and opened a video app. "Day 3, I said quietly to the camera. My face looked smaller than I expected. I am still alone. The card does not work. I ate the last decent thing in the fridge yesterday." I paused, swallowing. If you are seeing this, it means someone finally asked what happened to me. I saved the clip and locked my phone, heart hammering. Part of me hoped nobody would ever see it. Another part of me wanted that video to explode in my mom's face when she came home. I thought about my best friend Emma and hovered over her name. If I texted her, I would have to admit that my mom had left me, that I was hungry, that I was not okay. Instead, I sent a message that sounded normal. "How was your trip?" No reply. Maybe she was somewhere by a lake, eating burgers with her family, not even checking her phone. My stomach twisted. By day 5, the hunger felt like a fog around my brain. I started getting dizzy when I stood up too fast. I found a half-empty box of cereal in the back of the cupboard and ate it dry from the bag, trying to make every handful last. I opened my notebook again and added another line. By day 5, still no call from Mom, not even a text. Then another line. If I disappear, this will prove it was not my fault. That was the moment my thinking changed. This was not just about surviving until she came back. This was about what would happen to her when people finally realized what she had done. On day 7, my body felt weak, but my anger was stronger. I shuffled to the front window and peered out at the street. Kids were riding bikes. A dog barked at a delivery truck. A couple walked by holding coffee cups. Normal lives, normal parents. I looked at our empty driveway and whispered, "You chose Europe over me. Do you know what that is going to cost you when someone finds out?" As if the universe was listening, the doorbell rang. I froze, cereal crumbs still on my fingers. No one ever rang our doorbell. Not really. Neighbor kids just knocked. Packages got dropped. The bell rang again, followed by 3 sharp knocks. My heart pounded as I moved toward the door. For a second, I thought about pretending I was not home. If it was someone selling something, they would go away. But another thought cut through my fear. What if this is it? What if this is the moment someone finally sees me? Hand shaking, I reached for the handle. If you were 11, starving, and completely alone, would you open that door? Or would you keep pretending everything was fine? I cracked the door open just enough to see who was there. Standing on the porch was a man in a green jacket with my school's emblem stitched on the chest. It took me a second to place him without the classroom behind him. "Hi, Sydney," he said gently. It was Mr. Hughes, the counselor from school. "I have been trying to reach your parents. They did not pick up. Can I come in for a moment?" My first instinct was to lie, to say everything was fine, that my parents were just out, that I did not need anything. But my hand loosened on the door and I stepped back. "Sure," I murmured. "I guess." He stepped inside and looked around. The silence in the house suddenly felt heavier. The dishes in the sink, the empty counter, the nearly bare fruit bowl, all became evidence I had not meant to stage but had accidentally left out. "Are your parents at work?" he asked, scanning the room, clearly expecting someone to appear. "They are in Europe," I said, surprising myself with how flat my voice sounded. "For a month?" His eyebrows shot up. "A month? And who is staying with you?" I swallowed. This was the line, the moment I could choose to protect them or tell the truth. My fingers curled tighter around the edge of my shirt. "Just me," I admitted. "They said I was old enough." Something in his face changed, like a switch flipping. The polite concern turned into something sharper, more serious. He pulled out a chair and sat down at the table, motioning for me to sit across from him. "Sydney, how long have you been alone?" "A week," I whispered. "Almost." "Do you have enough food? Money?" I let out a small, bitter laugh I did not recognize. "They left me a credit card that does not work and $20. He stared at me for a long moment. It was not the way teachers stare when you forget your homework. It was something heavier, like he was trying to count all the ways this was wrong. "This is not okay," he said finally, his voice low. "You know that, right?" I shrugged, even though my chest ached. "They said they needed a break, that I am mature, that I should be able to handle it." "And how have you been handling it?" I wanted to say, fine. I wanted to keep pretending, but the notebook on the table caught my eye. The word evidence stared back at me in my own handwriting. "I have been hungry," I said instead, "and scared, and I have been writing things down, just in case." "Just in case what?" he asked. "Just in case something happens to me," I replied quietly, "so nobody can say they did not know." Silence filled the space between us. For a moment, I hated the silence, but then I realized he was not ignoring it. He was feeling it, really feeling it. He leaned forward. "Sydney, leaving an 11-year-old alone for a week, for a month, with almost no food and no supervision, is not just irresponsible. It is dangerous. It is neglect. There are laws about this." My heart thudded in my ears. Neglect. Laws. Words that sounded like they belonged in TV dramas, not in my kitchen. "What happens if someone finds out?" I asked, my voice suddenly small. "Agencies get involved," he said carefully. "Child Protective Services. There could be an investigation. Your parents could face serious consequences." there it was, the thing I had not dared to say out loud, the thing that made my anger twist into something sharper. Consequences, I repeated slowly, for what they did to me. He did not rush to comfort me or tell me I was overreacting. Instead, he nodded. For what they did to you. My mind raced. I imagined my mom's face when she came home to find strangers in our living room, people asking questions she could not dodge with a fake smile and a joke about independence. I pictured her seeing my notebook, my video clips, my empty pantry. "Do you want help, Sydney?" Mr. Hughes asked quietly. "Real help, not just groceries. The kind of help that makes sure this never happens again." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no, to slam the door on all of this, and just wait for my parents to come back and pretend this month never happened. Another part of me, the part that had been writing the word evidence, was tired of pretending. "Yes," I said finally, "but if I say yes, what does that mean for them?" "It means they will have to answer for their choices," he said. "It means adults will finally see what you have been going through." I looked down at my hands, then back at him. "Then help me," I said. "I want them to see exactly what they did. I want them to feel what it is like to lose control." He nodded once, firmly. "First, we make sure you are safe. Then, we make sure the right people hear your story." As he reached for his phone, a strange calm settled over me. The fear was still there, but underneath it was something new, a quiet, steady determination. I was not just a kid waiting to be rescued anymore. I was the witness. "If you were in my place, would you keep protecting your parents, or would you finally let the truth become the weapon they never saw coming?" Mr. Hughes stepped into the hallway to make a call, leaving me at the table with my notebook open. I could hear fragments of his voice, low and controlled, but the words that floated back to me were enough to make my pulse race. Alone. 11. No guardian. No food in the house. I traced the ink on the page with my fingertip. Evidence. Suddenly, it did not feel like a secret diary anymore. It felt like a case file. A few minutes later, he came back. "I called your neighbor, Mrs. Johnson," he said, "and I also spoke with someone from the Child Protection Hotline. They are going to send someone to check on you, but first, we need to get you something to eat." My cheeks burned at the idea of people checking on me like I was some broken machine, but I also felt something else, a small flare of satisfaction. If they were checking on me, that meant they were also checking on my parents. "Is Mrs. Johnson mad?" I asked. He shook his head. "No, she is worried. That is what good neighbors do." A knock sounded at the door, softer than his earlier one. Mrs. Johnson stepped inside, her eyes scanning me from head to toe, landing on the notebook, the empty cereal box on the counter, the pale look on my face. "Oh, Sydney," she breathed, "why did you not come to me sooner?" "Because I did not want to look weak," I blurted out. "They always tell me I am mature, that I can handle things. I thought asking for help meant I was proving them wrong." Her expression softened. "Asking for help is not weakness. It is survival. And sometimes it is the only way to make adults face what they do." That last sentence hit me like a bell. Make adults face what they do. We all sat down together, and for the first time, I did not feel like a kid being talked over. They asked me to tell them everything, and I did. I told them about the suitcase rolling out the front door, the $20, the card that did not work, the way my mom laughed when I asked who would be staying with me. "You will be fine. You are my little adult," she had said, like it was a compliment. As I talked, Mrs. Johnson's jaw clenched. Mr. Hughes scribbled notes on a pad he had pulled from his bag. "Can we show them this?" I asked, pointing to my notebook. "When they come, the people from the hotline." "Yes," he said. "In fact, I want you to keep writing what you felt, what you ate, when you tried to call them, everything you remember." "So they cannot twist it later," I murmured. "So they cannot say I am exaggerating." "Exactly," he replied. "You are allowed to protect yourself with the truth." The phrase made my chest tighten. Protect myself with the truth. That sounded a lot like revenge, and I realized I did not hate that. Later, when the caseworker arrived, she introduced herself and asked to look around the house. I watched her eyes linger on the nearly empty fridge, the trash can with only a few wrappers, the unused emergency credit card on the counter. She did not have to say anything. Her expression said it all. "How long have your parents been gone?" she asked gently. 7 days, I answered. They planned a month. "And who checks on you?" "No one, until today." "Do they call?" "Not since the airport," I said. She sent a selfie from Paris with a heart emoji. That was it. The caseworker nodded slowly, then turned to Mr. Hughes and Mrs. Johnson. "Thank you for contacting us," she said. As they talked, I slipped away for a second and set up my phone on the counter, opening the video app again. I recorded a quiet clip of the empty fridge, the lonely table, the caseworker's bag resting on the chair. "This is what our house looked like when they finally noticed I was alone," I said into the camera. "This is what my mom will walk into when she comes back." When I was done, I tucked my phone into my pocket, the recording safely saved. I was not just surviving anymore. I was documenting. The caseworker came back to me. "For now, you will not be alone again," she said. "We are arranging for you to stay with Mrs. Johnson while we speak to your parents and figure out the next steps." I glanced at my neighbor. She smiled softly and squeezed my shoulder. "Is that okay with you, Sydney?" the caseworker asked. I thought about my empty house, the long, quiet nights, the way my mom's last message had been about croissants instead of me. Then I thought about something else, what it would do to my parents when they came home and found not just a lonely kid, but an official report waiting for them. "Yes," I said, "I want to stay somewhere I am not invisible." That night, as I packed a small bag of clothes and my notebook, I looked around my room one more time. The posters on my wall, the stuffed animal on my bed, the window that faced the street. "This was the place you left," I whispered under my breath, imagining my mom hearing it later. "But it is not the place you will find when you come back." If you were me, would you choose to forgive and forget? Or would you let every empty shelf and unanswered call become proof that could change everything? Moving next door should have felt like nothing, just a few steps across a patch of grass. But carrying my small bag and my notebook into Mrs. Johnson's house felt like crossing a line I could never uncross. I was not just the kid in the middle anymore. I was the kid someone had chosen to protect. Her house smelled like laundry and vanilla. The table was set with placemats, and her fridge was full of actual food, not just leftovers clinging to the corners of shelves. My stomach growled before I could stop it. "We will fix that first," she said, pretending not to notice my embarrassment. "Come on, let us cook together." We walked back to my kitchen with reusable bags. This time, she did not just grab food at random. She let me choose. Pasta, sauce, vegetables, bread, fruit, things that would last, things that made the kitchen look like someone actually lived there. "Keep the receipts," Mr. Hughes said quietly as we unloaded the bags. "They show what was not here before today." So we put the receipts in my notebook behind the pages where I had written about my hunger. Evidence. Layer by layer, as we cooked, the sound of boiling water and sizzling garlic wrapped around me like something I had missed without knowing it. "Have you ever made spaghetti from scratch like this?" Mrs. Johnson asked. "Not really," I admitted. "My mom mostly microwaves stuff, or we order takeout." "Then today you learn," she said with a smile. "You learn how to feed yourself properly. Nobody can take that away from you." I stirred the sauce, watching the red swirl around the pan. It felt symbolic somehow, like all the anger and hurt inside me was finally going somewhere, turning into something I could use. While we waited for the pasta, the caseworker came back with more questions. She asked for my mom's messages, the time of her flight, the last time she called. I showed her the one selfie with the Eiffel Tower in the background and the caption, "Finally free for a month." "Free from what?" the caseworker asked. I stared at the screen. "From me, I guess." She wrote something down. I did not ask what. I did not need to. "Do you want to say anything directly to your parents?" she asked. "We sometimes include statements from kids in our reports." For a second, my throat closed up. Then I felt my notebook pressing against my arm where I held it, and my answer came out clear. "Yes," I said. "I want them to know exactly what this felt like." We sat at the table, and I wrote while the spaghetti cooked. "You said I was mature enough to be alone," I wrote. "But being mature does not mean I do not need food. It does not mean I do not get scared. You told everyone how hard you work, but you did not notice when your own kid was counting crumbs. I stopped, took a breath, and kept going. By the time you read this, other adults will have already seen what you did. They will have seen the empty fridge, the dead card, the notebook where I had to record my own neglect. If there are consequences, they are not because I betrayed you. They are because you left me. When I finished, I slid the paper toward the caseworker. Can you make sure they see this? I can, she said, and I will. Later that evening, I sat at Mrs. Johnson's table, twirling spaghetti around my fork. The first bite almost made me cry. It was warm and real and tasted like something I had not felt in a long time. Safety. This is what normal is supposed to feel like, I thought. Not sitting alone on the floor eating dry cereal out of a box. Mr. Hughes stayed for dinner, and we talked about school, books, and even silly things like the worst cafeteria lunches we had ever had. For an hour, I almost forgot that my life was, technically, falling apart in the house next door. But when the plates were cleared and the grown-ups started talking quietly in the living room, I heard pieces of their conversation. Words like temporary placement, investigation, and possible removal of custody. I did not fully understand every legal term, but I understood the feeling underneath them. My parents had treated my absence like a vacation from responsibility. Now, there was a real chance they could lose the right to call themselves my guardians at all. Back in the guest room where I would sleep, I set my phone up one more time and hit record. Day 7. But it is different now, I said softly into the camera. I am not in my house. I am somewhere safe. People know. They saw the truth. I looked straight at my own reflection. If you are my mom watching this, I want you to remember something, I continued. You always said actions have consequences, that if I messed up, I would have to face them. This time, it is your turn. This is not just my story. It is your choice, written in real time. I stopped the recording and lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. My heart was not light. It hurt. I still missed the idea of parents who would have stayed. But I also knew something else now. I was not powerless. Maybe one act of kindness really could change everything. But would it be enough to fix a lifetime of being second place to work and vacations? Or would it simply give me the strength to walk away from them for good when the time came? The days at Mrs. Johnson's house felt unreal at first, like I had stepped into someone else's family by accident. I woke up to the smell of breakfast instead of the sound of my own stomach growling. There was always someone asking how I slept, not just assuming I was fine. For the first time in a long time, I did not have to prove I was independent every second just to be tolerated. But even with the warmth, there was a countdown ticking in the background. Every adult around me knew it. I knew it too. At some point, my parents would have to come back. At some point, they would have to walk into everything they left behind. On the second night, my phone buzzed while I was sitting at the kitchen table doing homework. A number I recognized flashed on the screen. My mom's work phone. I stared at it until the screen started to dim. "Aren't you going to answer?" Mrs. Johnson asked gently. My fingers trembled. What if she is just calling to yell at me for ruining her trip? "Then you will know exactly where you stand," she said calmly. "But you do not have to talk to her alone." I hit accept and put the phone on speaker. "Sydney?" Her voice snapped through the line, sharp, not worried. "What is going on? Why is there some woman from Child Services emailing me about an investigation? Why is your school involved? Do you have any idea what this looks like for me?" There it was. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Are you safe?" Just, "What this looks like for me." I swallowed. "They are involved because you left me," I said. My voice shook, but I got the words out. "You went to Europe for a month. You left me alone with $20 and a credit card that did not work. They saw the house. They saw the fridge. They saw everything. "You are exaggerating," she shot back instantly. "There was plenty of food. You know how dramatic you can be. And you are 11, not a toddler. I cannot believe you would turn people against us like this. Do you understand what you are doing to our reputation?" Across the table, I saw Mrs. Johnson's jaw tighten. She leaned closer so her voice would carry. "This is Mrs. Johnson. I am the neighbor. I am also the one who bought your daughter groceries because there was almost nothing left. This is not about reputation. It is about safety." There was a sharp inhale on the other end. "Why are you interfering? This is a family matter. Sydney is fine." I glanced at the notebook next to me, open to a page where I had written, "No call for 7 days." "No," I said quietly, cutting in before anyone else could. "I was not fine. I am not fine with what you did." There was a pause, and for a split second, I thought maybe she would finally hear me. Then she spoke again, each word shoved through clenched teeth. "We will talk about this when we get back, and we are going to have a serious conversation about consequences, young lady." The line went dead. Mrs. Johnson reached over and silenced the phone before it could buzz again. "She is right about one thing," she said softly. "There will be consequences, but not just for you." The next day, the caseworker came to the school and pulled me out of class. We sat in a small office that smelled like dry erase markers and old coffee while she scrolled through something on her tablet. "Your parents have moved their flight up," she told me. "They will be home in 3 days instead of 3 weeks. My heart flipped. Part of me was relieved they were not staying gone for the full month. Another part of me recognized the reason. They were not coming back for me. They were coming back to protect themselves. "What happens when they get here?" I asked. "We will meet them at the house," she said. "I will be there, along with a supervisor from the department. Mr. Hughes has agreed to attend as a school representative. We want you to be part of the conversation if you feel safe." I thought about hiding at Mrs. Johnson's house and letting the adults handle it. I thought about slipping into my room and pretending I was asleep when they walked in. Both options felt like going back to being invisible. "No," I said slowly. "I want to be there. I want them to see me. I want them to see what they came home to." The caseworker nodded. "Then we will make sure you have a voice in that room." For the next 2 days, we prepared without calling it preparation. We did not rehearse lines like in a school play, but we organized facts. The caseworker printed copies of my statement, the notes from my notebook she had permission to use, the receipts from the groceries, screenshots of my mom's posts from Europe, the call logs that showed how many times she had not checked in. "This is not about punishing them for the sake of it," she reminded me. "This is about making sure you are safe. Whatever happens comes from their choices, not your existence." I understood what she meant, but another part of me, the part that remembered eating dry cereal in the dark, could not pretend this did not feel like something else, too. It felt like justice. It felt like holding up a mirror. On the morning of their return, we went back into my house for the first time in days. It still smelled faintly like stale air and dust. My stomach twisted, but I forced myself to walk through each room. This was my scene. I could not look away. The caseworker placed a thick folder on the kitchen table. Beside it, we put my notebook, open to the first page that said, "Evidence." My phone sat next to it, turned on and ready. The first video I had recorded, the one where I said, "Day 3, I am still alone," was paused on the screen. The image of my own tired face stared back at me. "Are you sure you want this playing when they arrive?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "She always tells me stories do not matter unless there is proof. This is my proof." Mrs. Johnson stood in the doorway, arms folded, her posture firm, but her eyes gentle. Mr. Hughes leaned against the counter, his school badge catching the light, watching in silence. The department supervisor sat at the table, slowly turning the pages of the file one last time, as if bracing for what came next. We heard the car before we saw it, tires crunching on the driveway, doors slamming, laughter drifting in like it belonged to another life. My legs went weak. The caseworker stepped closer to me, lowering her voice. "Remember," she said, "you don't have to protect them from the truth anymore. If they try to make you feel guilty, look at me, or Mrs. Johnson, or Mr. Hughes. You are not alone in this room." I nodded and forced a steady breath. The door handle turned, the lock clicked. That sound split my life cleanly in two, before and after. If you were standing where I was, would you rush forward, hug them, and pretend nothing happened? Or would you stay where you are and finally make them face what they did? The door swung open. My mom came in first, dragging her suitcase the same way she had when she left. She still wore her stylish trench coat, sunglasses pushed up like the airport was just another runway. My dad followed, arms full of bags, talking into his phone, his voice light, careless, like the world owed him an easy return. They stopped the moment they saw us. My dad's laughter died mid-breath. My mom's smile froze. Her eyes darted from the stranger at the table to Mr. Hughes by the counter to Mrs. Johnson near the door, and finally landed on me, standing beside the open notebook and the glowing phone. "What is this?" she demanded, letting the suitcase handle drop. "Why are all of you in my kitchen?" The supervisor stood, calm and measured. "Mrs. Carter, Mr. Carter, my name is Ms. Lopez from Child Protective Services. Please have a seat. We need to talk about your daughter, Sydney." My mom didn't sit. She looked straight at me, her gaze sharp. "Sydney, what did you tell them?" For a heartbeat, the old instinct surged, the urge to shrink, to apologize, to soften the story so she wouldn't be angry. Then I saw the paused video on my phone, that smaller, exhausted version of me from day 3. I lifted my chin. "I told them what happened," I said. "I told them the truth." My dad stepped in quickly, setting his bags down, forcing a laugh. "There's clearly been a misunderstanding. We left her food, money, a credit card. She's a very mature 11-year-old. Kids today are more capable than people think." The supervisor placed a paper on the table and turned it toward them. "This is the activation record for your card. It was never set up with a PIN. It was declined multiple times when Sydney tried to use it." She slid another page forward. "These are photos of your refrigerator and pantry 1 week into your trip. The food supply was not sufficient for an unsupervised minor. Several items were expired." My mom finally sat, more stunned than willing. "Expired food doesn't mean she was starving," she snapped. "We were only gone a week. We checked in." The supervisor slid one more page forward. "These are your call and message logs. 1 photo from the airport, 1 selfie from Paris. No calls asking if she had eaten, if she was safe, if anyone was with her." My dad went pale. He looked at the logs, then at me. "We told you to order food, Sydney. We trusted you." "You trusted me to survive," I said quietly. "You didn't trust yourselves to be parents." Mrs. Johnson stepped forward, unable to stay silent. "She was dizzy from hunger when we found her," she said. "She didn't come to me because she didn't want to disappoint you by needing help. Do you understand what that teaches a child?" My mom's eyes narrowed. "This is being blown way out of proportion. She's dramatic. She likes to write." The supervisor nodded once, then looked at my phone. "Sydney, are you comfortable showing them what you recorded?" My hands trembled as I picked it up. I pressed play. The room filled with my younger voice. Day 3. I'm still alone. The card doesn't work. I ate the last decent thing in the fridge yesterday. If you're seeing this, it means someone finally asked what happened to me. The camera swept across the kitchen. Empty shelves, a lonely cereal box. Silence. My mom covered her mouth. My dad's shoulders sagged. "No," my mom whispered, backing away as if the images were pushing her. "No, this can't be happening." But it was, and this time, she couldn't scroll past it or laugh it away. The supervisor folded her hands. "Based on our investigation, school reports, neighbor testimony, and Sydney's documentation, we've determined that leaving her unsupervised under these conditions qualifies as neglect under state law. Effective immediately, an emergency order is in place. Sydney will not return to unsupervised care until a full hearing is held." My mom shook her head violently. "You can't take my child over a misunderstanding. We needed a break. Do you know how hard we work? How much pressure we're under?" I stepped forward. "I know," I said. "You tell everyone how hard you work. Your friends, your coworkers, your social media. But when I was alone, hungry, and scared, you didn't tell anyone about that. You didn't tell anyone where I was." Tears filled her eyes. "Sydney, adults need time away too. We thought you'd be fine. We never meant to hurt you." Her words echoed something she'd said my whole life. "Actions have consequences, Sydney." So I gave them back to her. "You always said actions have consequences," I said steadily. "You taught me that choices matter. This is what you taught me. This is what your choice looks like." Silence swallowed the room. My mom looked hollow. My dad gripped the chair like it was keeping him upright. The supervisor spoke again. "You'll have the opportunity for parenting classes, evaluations, and supervised visits, pending court approval. This isn't about punishment. It's about making sure Sydney is safe." My mom turned to me, crying now. "Please, tell them you want to come home. We can fix this. We can be better." I wanted to believe that, but the part of me who recorded videos in the dark knew better. "I want to be safe," I said. "I want to be somewhere I'm seen before I disappear. Right now, that isn't with you." Her face collapsed. My dad looked away. "For the duration of the investigation," the supervisor said, placing a form on the table, "Sydney will remain in temporary placement with Mrs. Johnson. All contact must go through our office." "You're taking her side over her own parents," my mom whispered. "No," I said softly. "They're finally taking mine." We left before they did. On the porch, I heard my mom sobbing, my dad murmuring words that sounded empty even from far away. Walking back across the grass, I felt heavy and lighter than I ever had. I hadn't ruined my family. They did that when they chose freedom over a child who still waited for them to come home. Weeks later, in court, my videos became evidence. My notebook became record. My voice didn't shake as much as I feared. The judge ordered supervised visits and mandatory counseling. Custody stayed out of reach, for now. No dramatic movie ending, just something sharper, more real. They lost the assumption that they were the good ones. That summer, I learned to cook more than spaghetti. I learned that asking for help isn't weakness, and that truth can be the strongest kind of revenge. Not shouting, not breaking things, but refusing to let what happened stay invisible. My mom still writes sometimes. Long messages, apologies, promises. Maybe one day we'll find a version of normal that doesn't erase the past. Maybe we won't. But I know this. When she came home expecting souvenirs and stories, she walked into proof. A daughter who turned every empty shelf and unanswered call into evidence. A room full of adults who listened. A truth she couldn't talk her way out of. When she whispered, "No, this can't be happening," I realized something. It already was. So tell me, if you were 11, left alone with $20 while your parents chased their freedom, would you bury the truth to protect their image? Or would you do what I did and let the truth be the revenge they never expected?